Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Westside Church of Christ online YouTube Wednesday reading. We're in the book of Genesis, and tonight we're going to be in Genesis chapter 28, 29, and 30. We are moving kind of onward from Isaac, although Isaac's story in the world is not over. The focus tends to go towards Jacob and his fleeing from Esau, which now seems to focus mainly on Jacob. We know Jacob, of course, is the father of Israel. He's the grandson of Abraham, but he is the father of Israel. It is his family that will, in a way, make up the 12 tribes of Israel. And so the writer of Genesis wants us to focus on Jacob and the developing story. Jacob, as we've seen so far, has not really been the ideal person of faith. He has been someone who has not been in love with his brother as he ought to, that being Esau, despite the fact that God has promised Jacob that through Jacob the promise would come and so on, that the younger would be superior to the older. And he has also deceived his father Isaac. He has lied to his father Isaac and in a way stolen the blessing that Isaac wanted to give to his brother Esau. So Esau, of course, is angry, so angry that he wants to murder Jacob, which, of course, is not a proper response as well. But we see the dysfunction continuing in Abraham's family, right? That there's been this dysfunction in Abraham's family when he and Sarah refused to trust in God providing what God promised, but instead tried to come up with their own plans. This continued. We saw it in Isaac and Rebekah's relationship. Isaac lies, and Rebekah is my sister, and so on. Rebekah loves Jacob, Isaac loves Esau, and so on. And so this continues. But one of the good news is that despite the dysfunction of our families, and maybe we're embarrassed sometimes, is that God can make blessings still come through that. It doesn't remove all the consequences that we have to face, but it can. So we're going to be in chapter 28, chapter 29, and chapter 30. Rebekah is concerned for her favorite son Jacob after the two of them colluded to deceive Isaac and rob Esau, her other son, from the blessing. And so she demands that Isaac send Jacob away so he doesn't find a wife of the Canaanites and finds a wife among Rebekah's family. So Isaac is sending Jacob, blessing Jacob, telling Jacob that because he is the child of promise, he cannot find a Canaanite to wife, and so sends him off to their family. Poor Esau, he marries an Ishmaelite. He seems to want to not follow against Isaac's demands and wants to avoid a Canaanite wife and marries an Ishmaelite, and they become the Edomites that we read about so much. And yet, despite Esau being someone who wants to please his father, Esau's story is never going to reach what it could have reached. And so we pick it up in chapter 28, and we're going to read this wonderful moment finally in Jacob's life. And we begin in verse 10, and we're going to read through verse 17. It says, Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran, and he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So God, again, repeats the covenant promise of his grandfather Abraham that he repeated to his father Isaac. He repeats it to Jacob. In you and your offspring shall all families of the earth be blessed. So even Ishmael's family, Esau's family, all families would be blessed through Jacob's offspring. God also says to Jacob in verse 15, Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." And so you've got this wonderful dream. Jesus mentions this again in John 1:51. When he's talking to Nathanael there, interestingly, Jesus says, "Nathanael's a true Israelite, a true child of Jacob, in whom there is no guile," no deception. Whereas Jacob is someone who is full of deception. He deceives. But is he going to learn something? But this connection between the earth and heaven is an important, angels coming up and down, that God is deeply involved with his creation. God is not so far removed from earth that he's no longer interested nor involved. But God is not simply a record keeper. God is not simply someone who is marking our tests to see how we do. God is deeply interested and involved. And God says to Jacob, "I will be with you and keep you wherever you go. I will bring you back." This is the promise. I will bring you back. I will not leave you until I have accomplished what I promised. And so we see Jacob make a move maybe for the first time after this dream. He recognizes God, and he has this fear in him, and it's a godly fear, because it moves Jacob to make a vow that if God will be with me, right? If God will be with me and do all that he promised, Jacob says, then he will be my God. And so this is an important moment in the life of Jacob, because you're alone now. You don't have your father and mother. You're alone. And who do you have when you're alone? Well, you have God, and you have to trust and hope that God is going to see you through. Chapter 29, you've got the interesting story that Jacob finally makes it into Laban's territory. He sees Laban's younger daughter. Laban is his uncle. It's Rebekah's brother. And it mentions that over and over again. So we kind of remember, right, that Rebekah's character is one that will be deceptive if necessary, even to the point of cheating her one son in favor of the other. Remember that? Laban is Rebekah's brother over and over again. So there's a connection here that the writer wants us to understand. But Jacob sees Laban's younger sister Rachel, and she wins him over. It's love at first sight. He is deeply in love with Rachel. And so we're going to read verses 15 through 25 about the interaction between Jacob and Laban. And I want you to notice Laban, his mother's brother, right? Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing?" Right? Jacob's going to come and serve Laban. But Laban says, "No, you're not going to serve me for nothing. Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. So we notice in Scripture it talks about Sarah, Rebekah, and now Rachel all being beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. So whether or not we consider Jacob's initial proclamation of love as being naive, 7 years now he has served Laban for her. He genuinely wants Rachel. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening, watch a little bit of family connection here with Rebekah. In the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. It was dark, right? Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" This is a classic case of be careful what you sow, for you will also reap, right? And this is clearly what's happening to Jacob. He has been a deceiver. His mother has deceived. He has gone all in on his mother's plans to deceive, and now he has been deceived in what he loves the most. And it's going to cause problems for Jacob. Laban, of course, says, well, we couldn't. We had to give you the older one. And now Jacob has to serve another 7 years for Rachel as well. But Laban is his wife. And that sets up a further dysfunctioning of Abraham's family. The Israelites do not come from a clean family. It's a very dysfunctional family, and it just kind of shows us in a metaphorical way how God can take dysfunctional people and make blessings happen for them and make blessings happen through them. Chapter 30, we're not going to have a specific reading, but we just notice the unfolding of Jacob's family. Jacob does prosper in the land of Laban. God is with him. But the unfolding of Jacob's family, they're not all full brothers. There's a bunch of half brothers. Some are full brothers, some are half brothers. And we just notice a couple of things that God plays a part in this, even though it's dysfunctional. In chapter 29 and verse 31, for instance, it says, when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Rachel is like Rebekah and Sarah before them. But God sees that Leah is actually hated by Jacob, loved less by Jacob. Jacob is not fulfilling his husband's duties towards Leah. He loves Rachel, he doesn't love Leah. And so because of this, God blesses Leah with children, and blesses Leah with a lot of children. And so the first 4 children, in fact, belong to Leah. You have Reuben, you have Levi, you have Simeon, and you have Judah, who Jesus came from. That's important to remember. David, Jesus, great people came from the tribe of Judah. Well, Rachel gets upset with this, and now all of a sudden, because she can't have children, she gives Jacob her handmaiden, right? Her servant, and Jacob ends up having children through the servant. So you've got Jacob having children with a wife, you've got Jacob having children now with a servant, and that doesn't always go over well. And he has Dan and Naphtali through this servant. Leah has reached an age where she can no longer have children, and she gets into the competition again, and she gives Jacob her handmaiden. And Jacob is never being the person he should be and refusing this. And so Zilpah also has children, and they're named Gad and Asher. Leah and Rachel make a bargain for Leah to sleep with Jacob one night. Jacob agrees. He has no qualms about this. And Leah has another son by the name of Issachar. And God blesses Leah some more. And Leah has another son named Zebulun. But notice in chapter 30 and verse 17, before Leah has Issachar, it says God listened to Leah. God has a heart for Leah, has a heart for the wife that's not being loved as she should. And so Leah ends up having 6 children. Her handmaiden has 2, so Leah technically has 8, but it's only 6. And Rachel's handmaiden has 2, and so now there's 10. Well, God realizes that Rachel is in need. And it says in verse 22 of chapter 30 that God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her. And God takes pity on Rachel, and she also conceives, and this is the great child known as Joseph. It's 11, it's not 12 yet. 12 will come. But we notice all these children and all these wonderful events happening do set up something that may be of difficulty in Jacob's life. Jacob, as a deceiver, has not gotten away scot-free. And Esau doesn't know this, of course, but it's true. He hasn't gotten away scot-free. Evil always brings with it a price. So we're going to pick it up next week with Jacob and his preparing to come home, and what that means when he has to meet his brother Esau. But anyways, we're just setting up here, and we're reminded that there's consequences to unfaithful living, and there are consequences to faithful living. But one thing is for sure, God is always faithful, and God can make beauty even when there's been a mess. God bless everyone.